Hello.
I'm gonna need you to make it sexier, Brent said, not even looking up from his phone. Less charts, more vibes. This was 2 minutes before we went live for a $45 million Series B investor demo. I had back end simulations queued, scalability test results, fraud pattern visualizations, all of it polished and bulletproof. He wanted vibes. I stood there in my Stratus Edge hoodie, the one I'd worn through 4 all-nighters building the onboarding engine that cut churn by 70%, and wondered if I could physically shove his haircut down his throat. You built the system, he'd told me last week, but let me handle the narrative. That's my domain. His domain involved a ring light, a haircut named Disruptive, and calling me the dev girl in front of my team. I built this platform from scratch. Every API call, every auth layer, every single line of the damn deployment scaffolding still pinged my name in the logs. When the founders brought me in, it was duct tape and dreams. Now it was 7-figure ARR, 6 signed enterprise clients, and more interest than we could staff. And yet, here I was, getting notes from a man who thought React was a personality type. Still, I nodded, like I always did. Because it wasn't about me, it was about getting this round across the line. My team needed the runway. Hell, I needed the runway. Quiet doesn't scale in startups, but code does. So I made myself small, queued up the new deck with his edits, and told myself, just get through today. Real quick, if you're hooked already, do us a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe. Seriously, 97% of people listen without subscribing, but it really helps the team keep making these stories for you. All right, back to it. I took my seat behind the laptop as the timer ticked down on the Zoom feed. Brent stood under the lighting rig, white teeth and buzzwords ready. When we say frictionless, he opened with, we don't just mean UX, we mean business flow, investor confidence, and vision. Meanwhile, the product, my product, was quietly doing the thing it always did, working. My queue came in 15 minutes. Brent would toss it to me for the technical demo, and I'd walk them through the architecture, the scaling model, the custom fraud detection I built after our third client nearly walked. It wasn't sexy, but it was why we were here. The investors didn't want vision. They wanted viability. Backstage, our founder, Nathan, gave me a small nod. He knew. Everyone in engineering knew. Brent was here to streamline operations, which apparently meant gutting everything that didn't look like a TED Talk. He'd been in the building 4 weeks and already cut half the QA team, replaced our vendor lead with some crypto guy he vibed with, and started calling daily stand-ups agile sync jams. I'd seen this pattern before. Startup hires a LinkedIn influencer to look hot on pitch decks, and real work gets buried under slogans. But this wasn't some lifestyle app. This was enterprise-grade security infrastructure with live users, SLAs, and zero margin for Brent's ego. And right now, he was the face on the call with 6 fund partners holding the pen on $45 million. The chat pinged. Ready for tech walkthrough, one of the partners wrote. Brent squinted at the screen, smiled, and said, absolutely. Sloan, take it away. I clicked into the demo environment, hands steady. The interface loaded in milliseconds. I brought up the real-time load balancer monitor, then the segment that mattered most, the anti-fraud alert system. What you're seeing here, I said, is our anomaly detection layer. We've had 0 false positives across 2.3 million transactions since deployment. A pause. One of the investors leaned in. What's your approach to scaling that layer for international clients? I smiled. We've started containerizing that function to scale independently of the main auth stack. Latency's under 120 milliwatts, even across our EU cluster. Impressive, someone else said. Brent was shifting in his chair now. Another question. Another answer. I was in the pocket. They weren't just impressed. They were engaged. We were talking metrics, not mantras. My metrics. The ones I coded at 2 a.m. while Brent was probably tweeting about his morning cold plunge. And that's when I saw it. His jaw tighten. The same expression he had when the dev team ignored his simplify Slack thread last week. Brent didn't like when the spotlight moved, even if it was to the person holding the platform together with nothing but duct tape, sweat, and sheer refusal to let it break. I didn't know it then, but the next 5 minutes were going to burn themselves into my skull for the rest of my life. The first real question landed like a brick through Brent's glass castle. Can you walk us through the resilience logic on multi-node failover? One of the VCs asked, clearly ignoring Brent's last slide, which was titled, and I kid you not, Why Stratus Edge is the Vibe of 2025. Brent blinked. Of course, he said too quickly. That's more of a back-end thing. Sloan can... I've got it. I cut in, already switching screens. A few clicks, and I pulled up the back-end load distribution map. We built an automated failover system on top of a custom heartbeat check that triggers an horizontal scaling within 90 seconds of threshold breach. We had 2 real-world fail events during beta, 0 downtime, both times. The VC leaned back, visibly impressed. No downtime across both regions? Yes, sir. We ran a simulated container crash last Thursday across 4 nodes. Our average recovery time was 73 seconds with no user interruption. The chat pinged again. Can we see the auth flow during that simulation? I was already there. A few keystrokes and the logs populated. Clean, verified, time-stamped. Brent's jaw tensed. He stood off camera now, pacing just out of frame like a caged golden retriever who realized the ball wasn't being thrown to him anymore. The system logs every handshake, I continued. You'll see here that no retries exceeded the 2x threshold. Load balance integrity stayed above 98%. That's partly due to our layered detection buffer. Built it myself after the first client flagged latency in Singapore. Another investor chimed in. That's not in the deck. I looked straight into the lens. No, it's not. It's in the product. Silence. Then a low chuckle from one of the senior partners. The good kind. The we like this woman kind. Brent swooped back in, teeth gleaming like he'd just done something. We're proud to have such a resilient architecture. Of course, what really matters is how this all translates into scale. Let's talk user growth projections. But they didn't care. They were still focused on the system logs, on me, on the engine. Because the truth was, Brent could pitch Vision all day long, but Vision doesn't fail over at 2 a.m. when the auth server crashes. Vision doesn't patch security holes or catch rogue IPs scraping data from a stolen access token. That's what I did. What I still did. Even now, when I should have been letting Brent drown in his own buzzwords, I was still carrying this thing on my back because my team needed the money. The funding meant security for them, renewed contracts, proper salaries, actual benefits, not just free LaCroix and more cold plunge TikToks. The longer I talked, the more they leaned in. When I got to our anomaly detection framework, the part I'd built after watching our fraud rates spike during the second client trial, one of the quieter investors, a former CTO, sat forward. You baked entropy layers into the detection algorithm? I smiled. Weighted entropy across both time and event type. He muttered, Jesus, that's clean. Brent laughed nervously. We like to say Sloan's our secret sauce. I wanted to punch a hole in the wall. He'd called me the dev girl in the hallway 2 days ago. I'm not your sauce. I'm the stove, the gas, the goddamn restaurant. But I didn't say that. I didn't say anything. Just nodded and answered the next question. Somewhere between the 3rd and 4th technical segment, I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection of the Zoom window, eyes sharp, shoulders relaxed. I looked right. Like I was exactly where I should be, but that flicker of pride, that whisper of finally being seen, it came with a weight I knew too well. Brent was watching this, watching me, watching his show get hijacked by someone who didn't even wear makeup to meetings. His smile never reached his eyes after that. And I knew, right then, he wasn't going to let this ride, not in front of cameras, not in front of money, and especially not from me. I was mid-sentence, demoing the real-time anomaly spike handler, when Brent stepped into frame like a reality TV villain who missed his cue and was scrambling to make up for it. Thanks, Sloan, he said, loud enough to clip the mic. We're actually going in a different direction. I blinked. I wasn't... You're fired. Leave now. Silence. Static. You could hear the disbelief, even through muted investor squares. One partner visibly froze mid-sip of his coffee. Another turned to someone off-camera with a, "Did he just..." Look. I could feel the blood draining from my face, and for a full second, my brain refused to process the words. Fired. Live. On a call with 6 venture firms. On a demo I built. My cursor hovered, trembling slightly, over the kill switch in the top right corner of the screen. My hands, robotic, save the session log. I close my laptop, not in a dramatic slam, just quiet, surgical, like pulling life support. I stood. No words, no eye contact. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of a scene. He smirked. That slick, PR-trained smirk that belonged on a billboard for crypto shampoo. "Let's talk future growth," he said to the camera, like nothing had just exploded 5 feet from his face. I walked out past a dozen frozen expressions. One junior engineer mouthed, "What the fuck, Weck?" as I passed. Another girl from customer success, someone I'd trained last month, had tears in her eyes. But I didn't stop. If I stopped, I'd shatter. My bag was already packed. Not because I expected this. Because I'd learned long ago that when your existence in a room relies on being tolerated, you don't make the mistake of planting roots. In the elevator, my fingers shook so badly I nearly missed the lobby button. I stared straight ahead. Not at the reflection, not at the badge still clipped to my sweater, just the numbers counting down. I didn't cry. Not in the lobby. Not when security awkwardly glanced at each other, then at me. Clearly not briefed on whatever Brent's power trip of the day was. Not when I stepped out into the bright fall sun, blinking against the harsh light like I'd just been reborn through hellfire. I sat on the concrete bench across the street, opened my laptop again, connected to Wi-Fi. I could still see the call. Still in progress. Brent was mid-spiel about market disruption through synergy forward architecture, which translated meant absolutely nothing. I watched him flail for a few minutes. Watched him click through slides he barely understood. Watched him stumble over acronyms I wrote. My name still sat in the demo footer. System Architecture, Sloan Merritt. Right there in white text on navy blue, and then my phone lit up. A torrent of messages. Devin, lead engineer. Did that really just happen? Yasmin, customer success. Girl, are you okay, WTF? Nate, founder. Sloan, call me, please. But I didn't answer. Not yet. I stared back at my own name on that screen. I thought about every night I slept under my desk. Every bug ticket I personally cleared to keep us afloat when we lost our first QA team. Every late investor call I ghost wrote for Nathan. Every bit of trust I built. Every security flaw I patched. Every early client I onboarded when we were nothing. And now I was nothing again. To him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to throw my laptop into the nearest traffic lane and watch it explode like a scene from a Michael Bay movie. But instead, I sat there, just breathing. Because this wasn't the end. It felt like it, but it wasn't. Something in me clicked. Hard, cold, clean. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to watch. Let the man sink himself, live on camera with a product he didn't understand, a team that no longer respected him, and investors who, any second now, would start asking some very inconvenient questions. And when the smoke cleared, I'd be the one holding the extinguisher. The first error hit less than 4 minutes after I walked out. I watched from a distance, sitting on the cold metal bench across the street, laptop open, live call still running. Brent was trying to transition into his growth playbook slide, the one he stole from a Medium post by a failed crypto founder when the platform login failed. Not a crash, not a dramatic blue screen moment, just a quiet, insidious 403 error, login unavailable, session expired, try again later, and I knew exactly why. The demo server was synced to my dev environment. Part of the last-minute security patch I pushed last night, solo of course, added an auto-expiry token to prevent stale sessions from being exploited during open calls. The token rotated every 40 minutes. Without me, without the override key, that call was dead in the water. My phone buzzed again. Devin. Logan's down. Brent sweating. Please tell me you're watching this. Yasmin. They're asking questions. He just said you were a junior dev and the board approved it. What? Nathan. I don't know what Brent thought he was doing. We're on damage control now. Please, let's talk. I read the texts. Every one of them. But I didn't reply. I didn't even type. I just watched. The investor windows began to shift. One partner muted himself. Another turned off her camera. Brent clicked frantically, eyes darting off screen, probably trying to slack someone, anyone, to save him. But I knew better. The person who could fix this was already outside, watching him burn. Brent cleared his throat, tried to make it sound like a planned tech pause. He gestured to the screen like a game show host stalling while the prize wheel jammed. "We're just refreshing on our side," he said, sweat forming under his ring light. "Let's pivot into vision while the system updates." No one cared. The damage was done. I closed my laptop slowly, like sealing a coffin. My heart was still jackhammering, but the panic had shifted. It wasn't fear anymore. It was something harder, calmer, like watching a wildfire from behind glass. Brent had done the one thing I never thought he'd be dumb enough to do. He exposed the truth. He showed the people with the money that I wasn't optional, that I wasn't the dev girl or some back-end resource, that without me, the foundation cracked in real time in front of everyone that mattered. And he did it live. I looked up at the building. Modern glass, ego-stacked floors, a startup shell housing 2 years of my life. I'd built that platform like a spine, vertebra by vertebra. It wasn't just code. It was decisions, trade-offs, logic born from sleepless nights held together with duct tape and defiance. And the moment I walked away, it all wobbled. Good. Let them see it without me. Let them feel it. But even in that moment, watching Brent stutter like a drunk auctioneer, watching Nathan's name appear and disappear from the call as he scrambled behind the scenes, I didn't smile. I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. Because something else was starting to bloom inside me. Not rage, not even revenge, just certainty. I'd spent so long shrinking myself to fit their comfort zones, playing nice, saying we when I meant me, letting men like Brent take my fire and sell it as warmth. And all it got me was a sidewalk seat to my own execution. No more. From now on, I wouldn't code for applause. I wouldn't explain myself to people who didn't know what a race condition was, but wanted to own the roadmap. I was done fixing things quietly. If they wanted to play public, I'd give them a goddamn show. But first, I'd let them twist. Let the call circle the drain. Let the board ask the one question Brent had no answer for. Where's Sloan? The moment I'd been waiting for hit like a rifle crack through Brent's vanity monologue. On the call, the lead fund partner, a man who had barely spoken the entire pitch, unmuted, leaned forward and asked the question like he already knew the answer. Where is Sloan Merritt? Brent froze. I knew that look. Prey sniffing a trap too late. He tried to recover with a bullshit smile and a half chuckle. Sloan's been transitioned out. We're evolving our ops strategy. The silence that followed. Biblical. Then the investor spoke again, calm and slow. Page 2 of your executed term sheet, paragraph 4, subsection C, key contributor clause. This round is contingent on Sloan Merritt's continued active involvement. In writing, in ink. We requested it during diligence. Without her, the $45 million is void. The words didn't just land. They detonated. Brent blinked. I wasn't briefed on that clause. We've already restructured the team for forward momentum, and then you need to unrestructure it, the investor cut in, no longer bothering to hide the disgust in his voice. Because without her signature, we walk. Full stop. Another investor unmuted. We assumed she'd be CTO within the year. That was part of the calculus. You're telling us she's gone? Fired during the demo? Brent opened his mouth, closed it, reopened it like a goldfish in a blender. There must have been a misalignment. Seems there was. The first investor said, on your end. A third camera went dark. One by one, the money started vanishing from the call, not logging out, just withdrawing, like a receding tide before the tsunami. My phone rang again. Nathan. I didn't answer. He called a second time, straight to voicemail, then a text. Sloan, please, we didn't know. I didn't know. I need to talk to you. Please. I stared at it. The please. The I didn't know. The classic founder panic when their golden goose decides to fly solo. Another ping. I'll fix this. Just talk to me. I let it sit. Let it burn. Because this was the moment. Their moment. The one where everything Brent had built on slick words and fake confidence started sliding out from under him like a rug soaked in gasoline. The one where the truth, my truth, was no longer behind a badge or a polite smile or a quietly cleaned up disaster. They wanted a show. They were watching the trailer for the collapse. I leaned back on the bench, headphones in, just listening now. Brent had gone pale, stammering something about pivot strategy and interim backfills, but it was clear the room was gone. The money was gone. The trust was gone. All because he wanted to make a scene. All because he needed to show dominance. All because the woman who built the entire goddamn engine made him feel small when the spotlight shifted. He thought I was the threat? No, I was the clause. I closed my eyes and let the sound of their downfall wash over me like rain on metal. I didn't need to scream, didn't need to yell. I just needed to exist. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Brent's emergency board call started with a cough and ended with the sound of someone being professionally eviscerated. Why wasn't the clause flagged? The chairman demanded. Brent tried his usual startup improv routine. There was some ambiguity in the language. Legal cut him off. There wasn't. Clause 2C. Key contributor must maintain active employment through close of funding. It's not vague, Brent. It's underlined twice. Another board member jumped in. Did you read the term sheet? Silence. Brent. More silence. We built this entire round around Sloan. The investors required her. They named her. You fired the linchpin on a live call. You what? The chairman snapped. She's the only reason our onboarding velocity tripled. She architected the token gateway. You think you can just vision board your way out of losing $45 million? Outside the glass, I could picture him standing there in his overpriced sneakers, sweat bleeding through his ironic turtleneck, blinking at a room that had finally stopped believing his magic tricks. Meanwhile, the product was already coughing blood. The alert dashboards I'd built, silent, sleek, efficient, began to stack error logs. CPU usage spiked, the token rotator jammed, and the fraud alert system triggered 7 false positives in under an hour. Nobody could troubleshoot it because nobody understood it. And my team, the ones Brent expected to pick up the pieces, they refused. Devin, not doing it. Sorry, not after that stunt. Yasmin, no one's touching Sloan's stack. We're not building a runway for this guy. I didn't ask them to take a stand. They just did. Quiet loyalty, earned in coffee-stained war rooms and 3 a.m. Slack calls. The kind Brent would never understand, because you can't charisma your way into real trust. Client emails started trickling in. Login issues? Slow onboarding. Payment gateway won't validate. The support queue ballooned, and the engineering chat devolved into a loop of shoulder shrugs and Brent yelling at someone to just revert everything to the old architecture. There was no old architecture, Brent. I built this thing from scratch. And now it was unraveling exactly the way I knew it would. Nathan texted again. I'm sorry, Brent's being dealt with. Can we please talk? I stared at it. Thought about replying. I didn't. Another ping. We never should have let this happen. You didn't deserve that. No, I didn't. But that wasn't the point. Deserves got nothing to do with it in this world. You build, you protect, you stay quiet. You watch someone else present your slides, sell your code, take your ideas, and then hand you a culture fit review when you stop smiling politely through the theft. I opened my Drive folder, my own folder, not the company one. The copy I made for myself the night Brent started changing my documentation without telling me. Not out of malice, out of muscle memory. I've seen enough takeovers to know when the floor is about to drop. Inside the folder, architecture diagrams, licensing files, the original data schema, notes from early clients, bug triage logs, half the platform's DNA in color-coded markdown. I didn't download it for revenge. I downloaded it because it was mine. I started organizing, naming, sorting, cleaning the corners like someone setting a house in order before lighting a match. Because whether they begged me back or buried the company trying to patch what I'd built, I wasn't walking in the same way I left. Not anymore. No more savior mode. No more ghost in the code. If they wanted Sloan Merritt, they were going to learn real quick. I don't come with the furniture. I own the blueprint. The reinstatement offer came wrapped in corporate guilt and lawyer-sanitized desperation. Subject line: formal reinstatement invitation, immediate discussion requested. It was polite, clinical. Written like I'd stepped away to pursue other opportunities instead of being publicly executed by a peacocking fraud with too much hair product and zero understanding of multi-region auth clusters. They offered full reinstatement, back pay, a public apology drafted by PR, and, my personal favorite, a return celebration post for LinkedIn that I could review before it went live. I read it twice, then a third time. My reply was short. Per clause 2C, reinstatement alone does not meet investor assurance standards. Control is non-negotiable. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Not Nathan, not Brent. It was Avery Chen, lead partner at Granite Oak Capital, the man who unmuted mid-demo and torched $45 million with a sentence. He didn't waste time. Sloan, thank you for taking the call. Didn't say I took it yet, I said. A pause, then a quiet chuckle. Fair. Another pause. He dropped the pretense. I read your contributions. Your name is all over this architecture. If I'd known they were stupid enough to cut you, we would have pulled our offer in advance. Now you've got a chance to fix that, I said. He didn't argue. Walk me through what you want. I did. Not reinstatement. Not a pat on the head and a badge with my old title. I wanted interim CTO authority, voting power on technical hires, veto on roadmap decisions, full visibility into budget allocation, and direct reporting line to the board during the remainder of the funding round. Avery listened. I assume this isn't about revenge, he said when I finished. No, I said. It's about respect and coverage. If you're going to stake $45 million on something, I figure you want the person who actually built it in charge. You've got spine, he said, and I could hear the smile this time. I like spine. He didn't ask about Brent, didn't mention Nathan. They were background noise now, white-collar casualties of their own arrogance. He ended the call with a single line. You'll get the terms. Our counsel will push them through before EOD. And just like that, I was back. But not in the shadows. Not in a hoodie hunched over a terminal while some performative exec explained scale to rooms he didn't deserve to be in. This time, I walked through the front door with a new badge and a different weight behind it. Legal had cleared the paperwork. Brent had been transitioned into a strategic advisory role, Reed, neutered and benched. Nathan hadn't even made eye contact when I passed him in the hallway. Couldn't tell if it was shame or relief. Maybe both. My office? Bigger. Window view. Whiteboard untouched. Desk cleared except for a single note someone had left. Welcome back. Please don't save us. Lead us. Yasmin. It hit harder than I expected, because this wasn't about the money anymore, or the title, or even the code. This was about finally being seen for what I was, not what they let me be. I opened my laptop, logged in. The dashboard blinked back to life. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just got to work. Quiet power, clean slate, let the world adjust. The new deal went through faster than I expected. That's the thing about desperation. Paperwork flies when reputations are on fire. I wasn't reinstated. I was installed. Interim CTO, capitalized and bold. Temporary in theory, absolute in function. Full platform authority, direct line to the board, final sign-off on all technical decisions, hiring freezes pending my review, and a stipulation that I report only to the board and investor committee until post-funding transition. Brent was demoted. Officially, he'd taken on a narrower advisory scope to focus on strategic messaging alignment. Unofficially, legal had classified it as irrecoverable negligence. Word around the halls was that HR found a burner Trello board labeled Sloan Exit Strategy, time-stamped a week before the demo. Idiot left the access wide open. I didn't speak to him, didn't need to. His Slack status went from building the future to oh, no ETA, the kind of digital exile that doesn't need a farewell email, just silence. Then came the second investor demo, the real one. No flash, no light rigs, no vibes. Just me, a clicker, and a stable product that actually worked. I walked onto the floor like I'd never left. Hair pulled back, no makeup, the same hoodie from the first demo, this time with intent. The room was full, cameras on. Investor faces lit with sharp focus and sharper pens. I didn't thank anyone for being there. I didn't open with a mission statement. I opened with data. Onboarding completion rates are up 37%. Fraud triggers dropped 82% after the entropy patch. Session retention increased across 3 regions. And this, I pointed to the live dashboard, is the platform running with full redundancy. No smoke, no mirrors. Slide by slide, I walked them through architecture, logic, contingency protocols, deployment strategy. I didn't perform. I led, clean, unapologetic, no filler, just proof. The only time I paused was when a question popped in from Granite Oak's senior partner. How are you planning to scale support without overloading existing infrastructure? I didn't even blink. We're decoupling core auth from payment flow. I already started it yesterday. A beat, then a nod. That subtle nod, the kind that says, this is the one we bet on. Near the end, I clicked to the final slide. Blank. No branding, no tagline, just this. Let's proceed to Q&A. Brent, will you be fielding those or shall I? A few investors laughed. Softly, uncomfortably. One of them outright grinned and leaned back like he was watching the last scene of a courtroom drama. Brent, 2 rows back, stared at the floor. No response, no breath. I didn't wait. I'll take them, I said calmly. Please direct all product questions to me going forward. And they did. The questions came fast, and I answered each one with precision. Because when you build the engine, you don't need a script. You are the script. By the time the call ended, no one was confused about who was running the room. It wasn't about theatrics. It was about presence. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't remind anyone of what had happened. I didn't need to. They remembered, and more importantly, they understood. I wasn't back. I was in charge. The boardroom was quiet in that heavy, upholstered way, leather chairs, sun bleeding through blinds, and enough tension in the air to slice your thumb on. Nathan sat at the head of the table, posture folded inward like he'd been living in the echo of his own decisions. Legal was 2 seats over, face unreadable. Avery Chen, granite voice and sharper eyes observed from the far end. The screen on the wall still showed the updated organizational flowchart. My name cleanly slotted into the CTO box, no asterisks, no interim tag. Nathan cleared his throat and slid a small black box across the table. Inside, a fresh badge, my name printed in silver. Access level, global. He smiled. Tight, awkward. It's yours, all of it. The title, the team, whatever resources you need. I looked down at the badge, held it, let the weight settle in my palm like it belonged there. Then I closed the box. Thank you, I said, but I prefer consulting terms. Nathan blinked. What? I'll stay through the funding milestone, ensure the platform stabilizes, but I don't want to work for anyone again. You'd be CTO. No, I'd be another name on a slide deck while someone else books the Forbes interview. I've done that already. Avery nodded once, slowly, like a judge stamping a verdict. Understood. We'll draft advisory retainer language. Same authority, just cleaner terms. Nathan still looked confused, like the script had slipped out of his hands and now he was just mouthing the stage directions. Across the room, Brent sat in silence. Same chair, no title. His blazer looked too big now, like it was swallowing what little presence he had left. His jaw clenched, but he didn't speak. Maybe someone finally told him words don't build products. I stood, gathered my laptop, slid the badge back across the table. This was never about a seat, I said. It was about not letting you pretend I wasn't the one holding up the roof while you drilled holes in it. Nobody responded. Nobody needed to. The silence wasn't awkward. It was acknowledgement. I walked toward the elevator. Slow, deliberate. Brent turned to look at me as the doors slid open, eyes heavy with something between resentment and regret. But he still didn't speak. I didn't give him the oxygen to try. I stepped inside and pressed the button, held his gaze just long enough. And as the doors closed, sealing the room behind me, I breathed. Easy. Final. He wanted a face for the pitch. Turns out, I was the foundation.
Bye-bye.